Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is the gift of the darkness. We're going to get to talk about how when the darkness is arising, we often interpret it as a problem rather than an opportunity. And so we're going to talk about how we can turn that around and farm those opportunities for the possibilities for growth and expansion that they offer. But before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding into your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, and bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your electrons, all your molecules, all your cells, and creating this brilliant beam of light from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together and very softly rub your fingers against your palms to feel the deliciousness of that sensation and to bring yourselves present to this remarkable body, this physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning. Good morning, Rosalind. So good to have you here with us this morning. And welcome to everybody else who's joining us. So today we're talking about the gift of the shadow. And this came up because I often have my clients show up at sessions in crisis. And whenever that happens, I do a happy dance. And I do a happy dance because what it means is that something is arising, something is showing up that they are now ready to address. And so often when we experience darkness of emotion or darkness of mind, we get immersed in that and identify it as a problem rather than an opportunity. We were talking about problems earlier this week. So if we can recognize that when these issues arise, when we get upset, when we get angry, when we get disoriented, when we get depressed, these patterns of being are opportunities that are presenting themselves saying, hey, this thing's here, let's address it. Now we get to work on this, now we get to clear this, now we get to use this as a vehicle for our expansion and growth and transformation. And we've been talking about shifting paradigms, and this is a big part of shifting paradigms, is to be operating from the place of life is happening for me and through me rather than to me. And by the way, if you're making comments and I'm not responding, it's because I don't see them. So in order to have your comments seen, head over to the Enlightened World Network Facebook page. So go to Facebook and find Enlightened World Network, and on that page, you should be able to enter comments. Also on the Enlightened World Network YouTube channel. So you're not being ignored. I don't see the comments. Anyway, when we can step back from from immersion in the experience to recognize the experience, to recognize, oh, wow, I'm having a tough time, or, oh, wow, I'm really, really triggered by that, and rather than being so caught up in the trigger that that's the all-encompassing reality, is to be able to recognize, good morning, Gia. So good to have you joining us. Yay. So we're talking about the gift in the shadow. And when these issues arise, if we can interact with them as gifts, as opportunities, then it shifts the whole dynamic of how we experience these things and how we respond to them. So a wonderful, wonderful client of mine, client and friend, once said in one of our interactions that she was looking at the question, how would the universe talk to me? If the universe had a message for me, how would it communicate with me? And I think that's such a brilliant question, because there are all different ways that the universe might communicate with us. We might get synchronicities in connecting with people where the same thing occurs and recurs. We may see something on television or online, or in our mail feed or in texts, and we also might experience things from recurrent patterns in our lives, right? Where the same kind of thing, like I got triggered with this, I got triggered with that, what's going on, and use those opportunities or those instances as communications. And what happens if we recognize, hey, there's something going on here that I get to pay attention to. And what's the opportunity in this? What can I learn from this? How can I clear this? How can I see this trigger, I see that something in me is activated, and what is it that's going on about that? Good morning, Kimberly. Welcome. It's good to have you here with us. And we're talking about the gift of the darkness, that when these things arise in our lives, when we have reactivity, when we have circumstances that show up, what's the opportunity in those circumstances, or that those circumstances are presenting, or that reactivity or darkness even is presenting, that we can then use those or recognize the gift and opportunity that is present in the awareness of whatever that is, whatever that darkness or that circumstance is. So I was having a session with a client who recognized, this was so cool, that, like they got really, really, really triggered the prior day and were furious, and they were able to recognize, oh, wow, okay, so I'm going to have a session soon, and Mira says that these things come up because they're ready to be healed. And I loved that she remembered that. And it's true. Like the things that arise because we have gotten to a place in our lives where we have the capacity to address them. And if we operate from a premise of opportunity, if we operate from the premise that life is happening for me and through me rather than to me, then we can look for the growing opportunity in each of our circumstances. Good morning, Lisa. So good to have you here with us. Welcome. So here's the thing. I'm not saying don't feel your feelings when you're feeling them. You know, I'm not saying let's do spiritual bypassing. We're not talking about spiritual bypassing. We're not saying, okay, I'm miserable, I'm angry, I'm hurt, or I'm feeling miserable, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling hurt right now. And okay, that's awesome because there's a gift in it. And I know, you know, I don't need to feel the feelings. I can push the feelings away and override it with there's a gift here. I think that there's some processing that needs to happen rather than denying the feelings, you know, to allow and experience and acknowledge the feelings, and then move to the next place. You know, like we don't want to be stuffing these experiences. We don't want to be stuffing the feelings. We want to be allowing ourselves to move through, metabolize, experience what we're experiencing, and also recognize that there's an opportunity in that there's a communication that from the universe, from our higher selves, from whatever origins we choose to attribute to it, but that we have these communications that give us an opportunity to recognize areas for healing. And I think this is, you know, I see it over and over again. And like I said, when people show up in crisis to the sessions that we have, for the most part, I'm doing a happy dance because it means that we get to clear something more. And oftentimes in this process of growth, for a while anyway, the more we clear, the more arises, you know, because we're better able to contend with whatever is next. And so as we get stronger, what happens is that we get to see deeper and deeper elements of things that could benefit from our attentions. And it's kind of like an affirmation that your body and being has to say, oh, okay, great. You're in a better place now. Bam, let's do this one. Great. You're strong enough now. Let's do this one. Let's take this issue on. Let's take that one on, because now you can. And so it often looks like it's getting worse before it's getting better. But the thing is that it's only because it's getting better that the things that have been stuffed for so long are coming up, if that makes sense. I'm hoping it makes sense. It's kind of ironic, you know, that the better things get, the worse they can get sometimes. And the other thing that people are inclined to do is to invalidate their growth when something shows up that needs to be healed. People will say, oh, I was doing so good and now I've just regressed. And I don't believe that's the case. I really don't. I think that what's happened is that there's greater strength, there's greater foundation, there's greater fortitude. And because of that, we are better able to handle the deeper things. and then they arise. It doesn't invalidate all the progress at all. So Gia says, wow, I'm loving this conversation, Mira. This is so valuable to understand your journey. Great, Gia. I'm so glad. I really hope that it contributes, because it's a different perspective. We think that progress is linear, first of all. And what I notice with folks is that as you go forward, it feels like 3 steps forward, 1 step back, or 2 steps back sometimes. But what's happening, in my opinion, is that we're moving in this spiral. And Kimberly says, me also, I've been definitely experiencing this lately. So here's the thing, when the darkness arises, take it as an opportunity. Allow yourself to recognize the feelings, allow yourself to say, okay, what's available here for me to learn and to heal? Like, obviously I'm strong enough now to deal with this. What's available for me to learn and heal? And the other thing that is very much a temptation when darkness engulfs us, or knocks at the door even, or is feeling like a threat to us, is we try to deny it and ignore it. And by denying it and ignoring it, we're robbing ourselves of the opportunity to have the growth that is available to us. And listen, we've all been there, where we've been knocked to our knees, where it just feels like the world is closing in and everything is broken and we're broken. It feels that way sometimes. And the trick for all of this is to be able to have the presence and the grace to step out of the situation just enough to see that this is a dynamic, this is something that I'm caught up in at the moment. What's available here? And so Kimberly says, I've been triggered by a friend member. I'm wondering if it's a family member, friend member, about my past and telling me I need to do something that I don't really want to. And I can see my part in growth in this. The fact that you can see your part in growth in that, Kimberly, is okay. A family member. I can see your part in growth in this. I'm in the same situation, a couple things going on with family members, and I'm looking at how can what's the opportunity here? What's the opportunity for my healing? What's the opportunity for healing of the relationship? What is the opportunity? How is this something that I can address full on? And how can I interact with it in a way that is serving my highest good as well as the highest good of all? So yes, it's challenging, and we get to look, what's going on with this pattern? What's going, what part am I playing? What part are they playing? Is this role that I'm in some kind of habitual pattern? What's available there? What's at the root of that? What would I have to be thinking for me to show up this way? How would I have to be for that person to perceive me this way? To perceive me in a way that makes that behavior okay. What would they be, how would they be seeing me? So Gia says, I see thought process being changed it seems automatic, but back of the mind is the fear. What if everything becomes like earlier and I'll get back to my old suffering self? It scares me sometimes. Gia, thank you so much for saying that. You're not alone in that experience. People, I know so many people who have gone through deep depressions who are terrified of falling back into that depression. And I understand that, because that, you know, it felt so all consuming. And I think the fear of falling back into those feelings is part of what holds the prospect of falling back into those feelings, holds it as a reality. You know, terrified, Lisa says, terrified is putting it mildly. I get it. I really get it. I mean, I've shared with you guys that I thought about suicide every day for years and years, and was in deep, deep, deep depression. And when, here's the thing, when we live in fear of something, we are presencing that thing by our fear all the time, all the time. So it's kind of like growing up and saying, I don't want to be like my parents. You know, being aware of how your parents are and not wanting to be like your parents. So doing all kinds of things that are not like your parents. It's still being run by your parents, right? It's still being dictated by your parents. And when you can recognize that there are aspects that are like your parents, then, and that's okay, and you can embrace those parts. When you can embrace those parts, then you have latitude to be able to change them, because you're removing the resistance. So Rosalind says, are the behaviors in question good or bad? Ask self, what experience did I have to say it's good or bad? I think that's a really, really excellent question, Rosalind, because what happens is our judgments create resistance in so many instances. Probably in every instance, judgment is resistance just by its nature. Good morning, Bernadette. So good to have you here with us. We're talking about the gift of the darkness. And Rosalind says, is judgment of labeling something good or bad based on lack, loss, or fear? I think as human beings, judgment helps us to sort through circumstance. Judgment helps us to navigate. When we judge things in the context of polarity, like good or bad, right or wrong, even, we are using a reductionist view that we were talking about earlier this week when we were talking about the problem with problem solving, right? Is that it's very limited and bound by definition. And Bernadette says, I deal periodically with ancestral programming, LOL. We all do, Bernadette. And so one of the things that I recognize is that each of us now has an opportunity to heal those ancestral wounds, that as we heal ourselves, it moves back and forward in time. It really, truly does. So as we heal ourselves, we're healing generations, and we're healing patterns of generations. And Lisa says, now that I'm not working, I've been very conscious of falling back into bad habits and my depression. It starts out, then you're like, stop right there. So one of the opportunities, Lisa, for you is, as you're noticing that, as you're noticing these patterns asserting themselves, identify the pattern. Notice what happened to move you into that beginning of pattern. Good morning, Elaine. So good to have you here with us. Welcome. You know, notice what is the trigger, and allow yourself to see what opportunities you have in those moments of choice. When there's a trigger, notice that it's a choice point, that you have an opportunity that you may not have recognized, to be able to choose and to see these patterns, not as good or bad, not as right or wrong, but as messages, as opportunities, as communications from self to self. And if you look more deeply, you can gain some insight that can serve to shift that patterned way of being. So Gia says, I see fear as a story of things that never did happen, but our mind interprets things in its own way till we become aware to understand its tricks and stories. All stories start to fall, I guess. What do you think, Mira? Well, thank you for asking, Gia. I think that fear is projecting, like we may be in a situation, we may have experienced situations that were fearful or difficult, and then we have fear that we project about experiencing those circumstances again. And so much of fear is just completely manufactured in a given moment, in response to some kind of circumstance. We can be fearful, but fear is often a negative projection or a result of, or results from a negative projection. So Kimberly says, absolutely. Thank you for sharing this understanding. It's key. Point on. You're marvelous. Thank you, Kimberly. I'm beyond grateful for this half hour always. Point on to things happening in our lives. Growth is key. Healing. Growth and healing are key. Absolutely. And that's what we're here for. So that's what life is presenting to us, is all these opportunities. And oftentimes it feels like those things that are happening in life are things that are just knocking us down and beating us down. But if we can see them as, to see ourselves in those circumstances, we might be able to gain some insight into a different way of being that can shift the whole experience. And Lisa says, lack of purpose, 100%. So lack of purpose is a really, really deep, dark experience. I know for years that I just begged to find what I was here to do. And I was asking outside myself rather than looking at what would make my heart happy. And when I started looking at what lightens my heart, that is the beginning of a key to purpose. So Lisa and everybody else who's interested, please check out my website at yourcoreconnection.com. And there's a tab there that I think it's called the keys or the blueprint. And you can go to that tab. If you sign up for the email list, you can download the ebook that's called Your Inner Success Blueprint, 5 Keys to Discovering What You Were Born to Do. And it can help you to start identifying your purpose. And it's not like the purpose exists written on some tablets. It exists written in your heart. And I think you might find that really helpful. So please check it out. And, I'd love to have a dialogue with you about that. You can DM me on Facebook, but please check it out. Check it out. Because when we follow our joy, when we connect to our dreams, when we connect to the things that light us up, all of those things are keys to our purpose. So Rosalind says the tribe and societal pressures used to sit at the head of the dinner table for me. Now I can enjoy my meals with more peace. That voice still talks too much, but I'm not as triggered. That's awesome, Rosalind. Yeah. So I love the analogy. Yes. the metaphor that we can, that we are kind of at the dinner table, and maybe there's a head of the table that's dictating how we be. And when we can be at the head of our own dinner table, or when we can eat in silence, there's some ease and peace about that for sure. And Gia says, thanks for answering, Lisa. It helped me too. So good to hear that. I'm really delighted. And lots of thank yous here. Thank you, ladies. And Lisa says, that would be great. I'll definitely check it out. The blueprint. Again, it's yourcoreconnection.com, and there's a tab that's Your Inner Success Blueprint, or it's called the Blueprint, I think. If you hit on that tab, sign up for the email list, you should be able to get a free download of the ebook. If you have any problems with that, let me know, and I'll make sure to get it to you elsewise. So Lisa says, I just bought a sweatshirt that says, if it costs you your peace, that's too much. And I agree with you 100%. And the thing is that sometimes what we're talking about is darkness here, and the opportunities, the gifts that might be in the darkness. Sometimes that disruption has an opportunity in it. So rather than denying all the things that might disrupt us, we get to engage with them from a different vantage point that can serve us to have greater peace in the long run. So with that, I think that's it for this morning. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live each weekday morning here on Enlightened World Network on the Facebook page at 9 a.m. Eastern. And I invite you to check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network, EWN One with the Earth, Enlightened World Living. And I just have so much love and appreciation for you and for the gift that you are in my life. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I hope I get to see you again.